Good morning. Today we're going to talk about the Holocaust. We are Mariana Hayude and Andrea Palacios. So we're going to start presenting like a general background. So we're going to talk about the introduction, the setting, the history of the conflict, the key leaders and oppositional forces, the victims and perpetrators, the international reaction, the Holocaust and the 8 stages of the genocides, the way how we could prevent it, and we're gonna finish with a conclusion. So, about the introduction, Holocaust means Greek, which means sacrifice by fire. In the Holocaust, 6 million Jews died. And after that, in the contemporary history, it was considered like a systematic, bureaucratic, state-sponsored, and murder of Jewish people. What it means anti-Semitism? It's when there are hostility against Jewish people. And Hitler, who was one of the leaders of the Second World War, add to this concept the pure blood, that the German people are the superior race. So about the setting, everything began in 1923 with the hyperinflation that happened after the First World War. So then appeared the two sides, the extreme right and the extreme left. And the extreme right were the conservative part, and they consider themselves as fascists. They support the nationalism and the authoritarianism. In 1929, there was a worldwide economic depression. Some countries were really affected with it, and Germany was one of them. The unemployment percentage increased. People had not the facilities to buy food. Thank you. And then in 1933, Hitler was named as Chancellor, and since then he started changing the politics, and he started being influencing in the decisions, political decisions in schools with the police. After that moment, the president was Hindenburg. And after his death, Hitler proclaimed himself as the president, being the Führer of Germany. Then, on September 15 of 1935, it was proclaimed the Nuremberg laws, and they consist in that Jewish people they couldn't have the German nationality, and they start having many things that they couldn't have because just to be Jews. Then in 1934, Benito Mussolini, he was the leader in Italy. He decided to invade Abyssinia, it was in Africa, because he wanted to extend the territory. After that, in 1936, Japan decided to sign a pact with Hitler, and then they decided to invade China, and those were two mini wars that started happening before the Holocaust. And then Hitler started invading other territories like Australia and Czechoslovakia in order to expand the German territory. So we have a short video that explains a little bit like the before, the background of the Holocaust. So no, it's on YouTube.
In September 1919, a former amateur artist and army veteran named Adolf Hitler joined the ranks of the German Workers' Party, later known as the Nazis. It was a decision that would have a profound impact not only on Germany, but the entire world. The atrocities committed by the Nazis at the height of their power are staples of every lesson on World War II. But just how did a democracy like Germany fall under the sway of a tyrant in the first place? It all goes back to Germany's loss to the Allies in World War I. German leaders were forced to sign the Treaty of Versailles, agreeing to shrink its armed forces, give up land, and pay large sums of money in reparations, weakening its already unstable economy. Many Germans felt humiliated and betrayed by their leadership, and there was growing fear that their nation would be stuck in poverty and decline. In this climate of bitterness, Hitler rose to prominence. A gifted public speaker, he captured the people's disillusionment with a series of speeches calling for a stronger, unified Germany. He insisted that one group was to blame for the nation's post-war misfortunes: the Jews. Hitler and his followers attempted a government coup in 1923, but the plan failed. Hitler was jailed for treason for 9 months, but the publicity from the failed coup made him more popular than ever. Then, in 1929, the Great Depression hit, destroying the German economy overnight and leaving millions unemployed. Hitler saw the ensuing chaos as his opportunity to seize power. He loudly criticized the ruling government and promised to return Germany to greatness. Long-suffering Germans believed they had finally found their savior. In Germany's 1932 elections, the Nazis won a majority of seats in parliament, and Hitler ran for president. Though he lost, his soaring popularity inspired President Paul von Hindenburg to appoint him chancellor, the head of the German government. As chancellor, Hitler wasted no time tightening his grip on every aspect of German life. He tripled the size of the military, violating the Treaty of Versailles. Under Hitler's orders, rival parties were banned, while paramilitary groups cracked down on protests and executed political opponents. Anti-Semitic laws prohibited Jews from working, voting, and occupying public spaces. A propaganda department produced art, films, and books praising Hitler and embracing his vision of a better Germany. After the death of President von Hindenburg in 1934, Hitler declared himself Führer and absolute dictator. With Germany under his total control, Hitler would shift his focus to global domination, setting the stage for World War II. There's not sufficient.
Okay, so as we saw in the video, there were many happenings before the Holocaust that influenced this war to happen. So in September 1939, the Second World War began when Germany decided to invade Polonia. After that, they used a kind of a strategy that was named Blitzkrieg, which means that they involve many concentrations of aircraft, tanks, and artillery. We have to clarify that at that moment, Germany was going against the Treaty of Versailles because they were not allowed to have an air force, and they couldn't get more people for the army, but they did it. And then Germany attacked Denmark, Norway, Belgium, Netherlands, Luxembourg, and France in 1940. And then in 1941, Hitler went against Yugoslavia and Greece. Then, between 1941 and 1942, they decided to go to the Soviet Union, But the Soviet Union joined forces with France and Great Britain, so they created a plan to go against Germany and win. So in April 1945, Soviet forces entered to Berlin, and together with France and Great Britain, they they went into the heart of Germany, and the German forces declared as like the war was in 1945. So there's this is a map. Well, those forms are the concentration camps. In those one, in this, those were the extermination concentration camps, because they have many around Europe, but especially those where people was killed. And they also had concentration camps for labor and for people to work. You can. So Europe before the Holocaust looked like this. We can see that Germany was really big, and Austria, Hungary were like really a really big territory. And after the war, Germany became smaller, and Austria became an independent country. You can pass. So this is a video that shows how Germany entered into the other countries in Europe, and how the other countries, Germany, France, Great Britain, and the Soviet Union attacked Germany to stop the loss of territory. I think you can move it until the end, because it's like 2 minutes. That's when Germany decided to enter into the Soviet Union. Until the end. So what about the Jews? In 1938, the Kristallnacht, the night of the broken glass, happened, and that day 91 Jews were killed, and 30,000 were arrested and sent to the concentration camps. The SA and the SS forces, those forces were created for Hitler to protect him and protect the Nazis thinking. They were who entered into the houses of Jews, into the businesses, and they destroyed everything. In 1940, the first mass murder of Jews took place. In 1942, Nazi forces planned the final solution. The final solution was the complete destruction of the Jews. That was the thinking of Hitler. He thought that he was not pure and they were not allowed to live in this world. So the history of the conflict, well, Nazi regime started to use the concentration camps to finish with Jews, and they also killed people by shooting. They had ghettos, transit camps, and forced labor camps, as I mentioned before. They had special killers to kill Jews, and they were called Einsatzgruppe, and they killed 1 million of people in Europe, especially in Lithuania and Ukraine. And well, they were also doing experiments with people, and some prisoners of Auschwitz were subject of them. So yeah, those are the yellow stars that people had to use, and some example of how Europe looked like at that time.
For the leaders, now we have two leaders. One of them, the name of this was Axis Powers. The countries, Germany, Italy, and Japan were there, and another group was the Allies. Which countries? France, Great Britain, USA, Soviet Union, and China. And as you can see, and now you can see the pictures of the leaders here. One of the biggest and powerful man, the first man is Adolf Hitler, and another one Mussolini and Hirohito. And for the Axis groups, they are the leaders of the Axis groups. And for the Allies leaders, we have the Lebron, Churchill, Roosevelt, Stalin, and Khrushchev. They, as I told you, they were from France, Britain, USA, Soviet Union, and finally China. Here we have a camp that, as you can see, at first they took the people, all of the Jewish here to the camp. They had a very bad situation here. They didn't feed them. Even for every day, just feed them less than 200 calories. So the situation of them was so bad, so terrible. They hold them here and did some surgery or some maybe research on their bodies at first, especially on children. And after that, they killed them by shooting or maybe hanging or maybe took them on the some gas rooms, and after that they cut the body and took in the oven finally, and really the situation was so horrible.
For the international reaction, the occasional cases of foreign countries help the Jewish by doing ingenious intervention. Uh, One of the countries that helped the Jewish a lot, it was the Jewish diplomat Wallenberg. It saved 1,000 Jewish in Budapest by supporting them with Jewish passports. That gives them the advantage of leaving Germany or the other provinces that they were conquered or taken by Adolf Hitler at that time, and they have the safety of like the Jewish countries. Part of the war reaction to the Holocaust was in the Nuremberg trial war. And it started in November 1945, and this helped them a lot because there were like laws that prevent the other countries to keep hurting the Jewish and the people that were affected, even though they say they weren't Jewish, they keep being affected since their grandfathers or grandmothers were Jewish. So in that case, the world wanted to point out people as individuals so as not to blame the people of any other country. The Nuremberg turned into something like law and solve, like this solved a lot of problems in that time. An international military tribunal was held in Nuremberg, Germany on the 25th of November in 1945. While a few of the guilty were punished, many were not, like Adolf Hitler, Heinrich Himmler, Joseph Goebbels. They weren't like sent to prison or were like punished like they should be punished. If not, in the other case, they actually were like they punished themselves. They killed themselves. They killed their families, and there were one of the cases that they murdered themselves. They commit suicide and avoid the punishment they should have received in that time. Well, and also one of the most comprehensive reviews of the Nuremberg Tribunal is Donald Blockhamel work, and he helps a lot to the Jewish people. So to continue, one of the 8 stages in the Holocaust. First is classification. The Nazis classified depending on their racial and biological superiority. They call them like life unworthy of life, the Jewish. And the Jews were distinguished from Aryan races, and others identified descendants of the non-Europeans. In other words, Nazis never considered them like part of from the European people. They were like people, no one in history. Like they were like, they don't care. They are Jewish. They're like a plague that is a disease, and it's actually not like that. They were people that were affected, and they prefer like treat them like germs or like something like trash. For the symbolization, the Nazis to identify their people will symbolize them with different triangles with different colors depending on what they were. Like let's say if they were homosexual, they will put them the pink triangle to identify them, or if they were like in a high position and they were truly German and not Jewish or other religion, I think they usually wore the uniform and not like a triangle. They were more like a uniform. And there were other colors like the red one, the green one, the blue, the black, the brown, and the yellow one that was for the Jewish, that they make one triangle going down and the other up. If that Jewish was used for working for them, they will use a triangle down yellow and a black up.
So it will like make them from a different position to the other Jewish, because they were obligated always to use that triangle, that star, to identify them like Jewish. So yeah, and for the third thing, the dehumanization, there the Jewish people, through atrocities such as Nuremberg laws, through the expression "life unworthy of life," explained the Nazis' dehumanization to the Jewish, as well gypsies, people from Poland and Russia, homosexual, and people with disability. Like Germans always consider them like unworthy in life. So there was a quote that we found that it says the law includes Germans' laws from breach citizenship and prohibit them from marriage and having sexual relationship with persons of German or related blood. Ancillary ordinance to the laws disenfranchise Jews and deprive them of most political rights. So, in other words, explaining this quote, Jewish were like apart from normal people. They were, like I explained before, they were considered like a bacteria. Like they shouldn't be with our blood. That for Germans it was a superior blood in that time, and so they couldn't like mix the Jewish with German or normal European with Jewish, because it was something prohibited. And for the organizations, reference to the Nazis when they were organizing the genocide, particularly the Stufel 3000 trained Hessengruber, the groups that killed the Jewish, the special groups, murdered about 6 million Jewish with these whole organizations that were a lot of military groups, and most Germans that follow Adolf Hitler. For the polarization, through that time, propaganda was so high that even racial groups in the occupied countries will help the German troops in finding and kill the Jewish. I found as well that during that time there was they have the Olympic Games, and so for the other countries that went to Germany to do the Olympic Games during that time, Adolf Hitler asked for everyone. He basically declared like everyone to take off the propaganda that they were looking for Jewish and kill them, and in that way, the people wouldn't notice what was actually happening in Germany with the Jewish people. So he could continue killing that group, so prevent that they stop him and consider him like the bad person that he was in that time. So for the preparation, what he did in the different regions that he get into, like Poland and Belgium and other parts of Europe, he opened different camps for the extermination that they were doing. During that camps, they took all the Jewish people through these trains without seats, without food, without even oxygen sometimes, because there were too many people inside one baggage, and like one of the containers where you usually sit down and go, but here there were like 1,000 Jewish in one cabin, and they were all without oxygen, like space, and all uncomfortable. And they were sent to different camps through France, Italy, Poland, like I say. And yeah, for the extermination, what they did is put them to identify them first. They would put them in pajamas, they were considered pajamas, but they were like prisoners outfit and no outfit. It's like the uniform for a prisoner that they have for that time. It was mostly for them, the Jewish people. And well, what they did in that time was, or hanging them, shoot them, or gas them in the so-called showers. And during that time, Adolf Hitler, like all the Nazis group, so that it was more effective doing the gas than the shooting. That's why most of the extermination was with gas, showers, and then shooting. So most of the gas, they gas them, they kill them, and then they pile all the bodies and fire them until there was no sign of bodies, because they always need after that finish a job, like put them in a hole or cut them and put them in fire, or just leave them there in a pile and leave them to die. For the denial, here by the time the German troops began to lose the occupied lands in Eastern Europe, they began to dig up the mass graves and destroy the dead bodies. So there's where I was explaining that they would get rid of the bodies, so no one noticed and no one think that something happened. They were actually doing something good, and because no one is noticing their bad things that they were doing at that time. So that was their denial. Like they were saying to themselves, like, no, we're not doing nothing bad. We just like throw the body there, and there's no one. Well, since the other countries started realizing that Adolf Hitler was killing too many Jewish and without a reasonable, without a real reason, they started like taking them out from their country, their countries, and that's when they start to kind of give up.
Really, the Holocaust should be avoided before happening. As you know, more than 6 million people were died just because of nothing, because just they were Jewish, just because of this. And they should, most of the country, they should use the major European weapon for avoiding this. But in June 1939, Britain and France joined together to maybe negotiating with the Soviet Union to make a new military against the Germany. But unfortunately, because of some political maybe problems or political situation of some maybe Jews something, it didn't happen, and the negotiation broke and they couldn't do anything. So because of this, Germany did the same things and killed most of the people, most of the Jewish as they can.
For the conclusion, the impact that the Nazis caused in the World War II is a classic example of genocide that encompasses all of its indicators with the different stages. We well-studied aftermath, which is the Holocaust, still needs to be analyzed, and experts from different disciplines should give analysis. The result for such an analysis, like this project from the Holocaust, have an invaluable application in the studies of other cases of genocides, since it's very important how people have reacted in the past, and how we can avoid in this present time, avoid doing the same stuff that they were doing, since we as humans don't notice that we already did something bad. Seeing the history of what people have done before, it makes us realize that we can make a change and we can change that. So yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.